Our next keynote speaker is Tom Hajdu. Tom is the CEO of Disruptor and Umbilical. Tom is a professional disruptor and incubator. He's worked in the music industry in the 1990s. He co-founded Tom and Andy, one of the largest music production companies at the time. Worked for MTV, some of you might remember. And he worked with artists such as U2 and Lou Reed. He has a degree from British Columbia and a PhD from Princeton. He thinks like an academic. He gets things done like an entrepreneur, and we're very proud to have him. He's also giving a workshop with Christine Derry on disruptive innovation, and he presents to us the future of live event experiences and real-time marketing. And we're so happy to have you. So take it away.
Nice to see you.
Thanks.
I love Sydney. It's great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So let me just give you a bit of, I was going to give you a bit of background, but just actually giving you present tense. Disruptor is a creative lab that is working on hard to solve strategic problems. And that's kind of hard to do because artists tend to think differently than technologists. Not always, but technologists or engineers tend to think more deductively, and creative people tend to think more laterally. And we'll be talking about that a little bit more in the workshop later on. But this company is an outgrowth of Tom and Andy, and the strengths, the core competencies are that we have a lot of relationships in the entertainment space. We have very strong technical skills as well, but also we kind of bridge both the creative and the technical side, so we're kind of able to drill quite deeply on both aspects of innovation, and as a result, we end up getting better results that are more strategic and less tactical. So this is the focus of where the company sits. You'll see that this is a recent Cisco data that they put out a couple of months ago. They project that there'll be an over 11 times increase in data usage, which is impressive. But I think the thing that's really impressive is that the vast majority of it, over 90%, is actually in what I would call entertainment, quote unquote. Personally, I don't think that in 5 years people are going to be sitting there looking at movies, but however they're defining entertainment loosely, I think it makes it a very interesting space. So this problem that the first thing, or the thing I'll show you today is called Umbilical, and it started because we were speaking with an entertainer who said that they were concerned that the people at the live events were checking out of their events, and they didn't want them to check out of their events. Instead, what they wanted to do was to extend the light show into the audience. And we thought that was a really good idea. It was really hard to do for lots and lots of technical reasons. But then what we realized was that once we solved that problem, I can't draw anything here, but I'll use my hands. Once you can control the data flow from the performer to the audience, you can also control the data flow back to the performer and also in every direction, both locally and globally. So it's a very big strategic play. So the goal is to empower new mobile experiences that bring people together and commerce without limits. So that's kind of what we've been focusing on. And of course, if you're doing it at an event, both locally and globally, you can also continue that digital strategy of engagement before an event, during an event, after an event. So it really becomes part of a much broader digital strategy of engagement. So we divide these experiences or applications into three broad categories: the spectacle, services, and interactions. And I'm just going to give you a few examples so you'll get a sense of what we're doing. We talked about the light show. Somebody sends some, let's say everybody can become a part of this light show. Now this also works in terms of making a massive video collage. For example, birds can be flying across a screen, or all of a sudden this side starts to emanate sounds and then stops, and then this side replies, et cetera, et cetera. It's really just limited to your imagination at that point. Now, of course, you can also start going towards the to become part of the show. Now the audience can start to participate in various ways using the camera, etc. In a way, I know there's going to be a panel on gamification. So it's almost like the gamification of a live event, if you will. These mobile devices can be game controllers, for example. And everything I'm showing you now, we've actually created. And then the artists can continue to engage with their fans in a very personalized way based on demographic information at any time. So the way it works is when people arrive, even if you're not your device, you have your device on, it, the umbilical can be woken up and start to actually want you to participate. You may walk through this audience, and all of a sudden there you are on the big screen, for example. This is an interesting way to meet people. What you can do is analyzes the music libraries of everybody in the audience. All of a sudden, it's an icebreaker, right? Feel free to interrupt at any time if you have any questions. We call this, well, this is a way of actually finding people. So, let's say you're going to be meeting somebody at a stadium with 100,000 people, and you'll say, okay, I'll meet you at the parking lot or the concession stand or something like that. It's fairly difficult to do. So what this does is it allows you to actually locate people using any type of data, whether they're your friends or Facebook friends or family members or people who love the Melbourne team versus et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you can start to find your tribe in a sense and interact with them even from a distance as you connect. So what this is just sampling of a bunch of data. It's really real-time data that's it's very, very powerful because it's real-time geolocated data. So now this is a powerful opportunity for brands in all sorts of ways that are not quite yet defined. But here's the opportunity for brands. You can see that in very short order, digital, including mobile, will surpass TV ad revenue by 2017. Now that's actually for cable in the United States, so I don't know what the numbers are here, but I would imagine they're somewhat related. Mobile ad revenue will grow over 2 times faster than any other ad medium in the next 5 years. One of the things that I find interesting is that, and we'll get to this slide in a minute, but if a brand is engaging in some way, and we can use that term very, very loosely, with an audience member in a sort of peak experience, in an experience that is very entertaining and stuff, that can be also very, very powerful. But we can get into that in a minute. It's right here. So this is the value proposition. The fans want to get closer to the performer in some way, whatever that performer is, whether it's a sport team or an election or who knows what, a DJ. The venue and the performer want to develop relationships with the fans. And the brand facilitates those relationships. So hopefully the idea is to align all of the values between the performer and the fan and the brand. So, what is Umbilical? It's a data acquisition platform, which we talked about. It's a licensing program with APIs for app developers and also a bespoke service business. And I'll just show you some of the, this is how it works. So there's a lot of technical problems in how to actually achieve this, and I'm not going to go into it right now, but when you have lots and lots of people in a space, things tend to break down. So that problem is solved. There are several problems that are also solved. And then using the Umbilical platform, you can create any type of experience that you want. I kind of like to think of it as a channel changer or something, because you have the flexibility. What I might want to do might be different than what another person might want to do during the live event. This is an example of the API developer kit, and this is actually limited. I mean, I've limited the numbers of things that are available here, but there's many more than this actually. But you get a sense of the scale and scope of the platform for developers and for experiences that can be created. We talked about before and after. So yeah, think of it as a second screen experience both during an event but also non-locally as well. So it's kind of an interesting platform. So I'm just going to show you this. There's something I'm going to show you. I'll hit the button in a moment. There's a sport that young people are doing called parkour right now. It's very athletic. It's kind of like a combination of gymnastics and martial arts or something like that. And one of the MTV hosts of a show for parkour runs the LA chapter of parkour. So it's called Jam, and they're one of our testing sites now. So what they do is they allow young people to engage in live events in lots of different ways using their mobile devices. So this is just a short example of that.
For the past 30 years, from breakdancing to tricking, battles have all been judged in the same way. But thanks to Umbilical, that's all about to change. An app completely aimed at changing the experience of battles, events, or jams around the world. Post your shout-outs to the crowd or let everyone know you arrived. Shoot pictures and videos that are pushed instantly to the screen, or choose to share them on your social media account. Connect and chat with others at the event group. And finally, live, real-time voting results via the crowd or judges.
It's going to change tricking forever.
So the thing that's interesting about that is you have this new sport with young people. Excuse me, it's a long ending. I didn't make that. It's the sport with young people, and they vote by raising their hands. You know, they all have mobile devices. So when they were able to think, well, wow, we can actually all participate and vote using mobile devices, they were very, very excited. Very simple solution, but very, very effective. This is what we ultimately discovered in solving this platform, that great marketers of the future will not be measured by how well they tell stories to their audience, but how well their audience tells stories about them. So that's really what the platform's about. That's my presentation. Any questions? No? Yes?
Thanks, that was very interesting.
Mm.
I read recently Kate Bush starting a tour of the UK.
Mm.
Her concern was that her audience would be taking pictures and, you know, in a sense disengaging from the performance. So I think she, you know, asked people not to take them, whatever. What's your view on how that relationship changes?
Well, that's precisely why we built this platform, right? Because and we've spoken with performers about this problem, that, you know, it's not just taking pictures, it's worse than that, right? So somebody's at a concert and this is how they're watching the concert. And the performers are not thrilled with that either, right? And so what we're trying to do is actually use that technology and those behaviors to enhance the engagement rather than having people check out, rather than having to mediate that experience. And because a lot of what really happens in these events, like in the Kate Bush example, it's actually the people are not even there. They're really just showing off to others who are not there. And so we're trying to address that in some positive ways. And you know, a lot of it is trial and error. Some things you think are going to work and they don't, and other things you think would be silly and turns out to be great. So it's kind of a new area. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks for that.
Okay.
Is a lot of what you do trial and error?
Well, it's
Or
big.
is it motivated by a particular approach, you know, kind of sort of the theoretical?
Right, so some people that we're working with have very specific problems that they need to solve, like the parkour guys. Other people want to experiment and see what will work on what will not work. It really depends on the organization and what their approach is to addressing these social issues. I almost think of this as the social axis of live event experience, because it's no longer just a passive experience, it's a participatory experience. So we're not entirely sure how it's all going to work out, but typically a lot of these, a lot of the solutions in this space that you find are very tactical. You know, you can do one thing and that's it. And that makes it kind of a limited way of expanding how this is evolving. We're in the very early days of these solutions, I think.
There's another question
Yeah.
here.
You might not like to answer this question because I think you've worked with U2 before.
Mhm.
But do you have an opinion about the recent collaboration between U2 and Apple, iTunes? And what it does
Oh,
for the brand of U2?
you mean U2 when they released their album? I thought it was great. It's bombastic. Why not? Why not?
I was wondering if it had any negative impact.
I think it had a lot of positive impact. I mean, sure, we're talking about it.
I think it's a good example of what we might call a first world problem.
Uh-huh.
That people get up in arms and they create a movement on Twitter because they were gifted
Yeah.
an album with music.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating the interplay, and we have some discussions on Twitter about this interplay between the personal experience and the communal experience, where going to a concert used to be a shared experience. Now everyone's phased out into their own personal digital world, and the way you try to reconcile, tapping into the personal device and to make it into a communal device. So what's your...
Right, so imagine, for example, we had a large beach ball that was a digital beach ball that we were throwing it across the room to each other, for example, trying to create experiences that bring us all in together again. I see this as much a personal empowering device during a live event experience as I see it as a device that allows sort of the hive mind to come back in a way, in a very powerful way. Certainly, that voting thing is a really good example of that, right? Everybody's voting individually, but the results are the cumulative total. So I think perhaps now we have the opportunity to address the question that you have in a more rigorous way, and I think different communities will find different opportunities that suits them better than others. I think we'll see a range of things.
So any more questions from the audience?
Yes.
Over there. Can we have the microphone?
Sure. I have the ideas around things like soccer violence, where you've got two teams that
Yes,
fight
absolutely.
each other.
Sure.
How would this work?
Well, I mean, that would be, it's quite obvious, right? I mean, well, I guess there's a whole thing happening now this weekend or something with Melbourne and something.
Yeah.
So yeah, you would probably not want to sit with your group, and then this group could do something as a whole team versus the other. And I mean, there's a lot of ways that you could do that in a very positive way, right?
How do you make them less separate? This team's in their colors, and their team there, and they're in their colors, and in some cases it can erupt into violence.
Oh, well.
Usually here.
Yeah, well, you could make it less separate, or you can make it more separate. Well, you can do whatever you wish. If you want to do it that way, you can. It's really up to the. This is where the creative teams and the creative directors come in, right? And I think that it really depends on the culture of the organization, et cetera, as to what works best, what would be most appropriate. I could see both sides. Yes.
You mentioned there's no need for this to be local. Can you give us some examples of more distributed applications?
Well, okay. Somebody could be engaged. Let's say, for example, this is being streamed, okay, and somebody could be participating actually in it, not just passively or doing it through text, but there could be ways that people could be not just asking questions, but engaging in this experience in different ways from a non-local experience. For example, let's say, for example, at a concert, I'm in Tokyo, the concert's in Sydney, and my girlfriend and I are take a video which shows up actually on the big screen at the concert, as opposed, so I'm just making that up, but
There's
yeah.
Yep.
I was just wondering, does this not become the experience rather than the...
Well, yeah, that's a great question. That's an excellent question, and that's why I think think it really depends on the organization and the ways in which a particular organization and brand feel is the most appropriate use of it. But I think certainly it's true that currently it's not in good shape. So I think we will discover these things as we go, But I think the fact that people are being encouraged to participate in different ways. You could even participate passively, right? Everybody could just put up their phones and all of a sudden stuff could be happening in different ways that's a passive thing, right? But nevertheless, I think that I think we're in worse shape now, because so many people are checking out in some ways.
There was a
Yes?
question
No?
earlier about on Twitter about how would you have used that technology in this room during your presentation?
Wow, good question. It would have to be an interesting way to game this thing. You could, what could you do? You could be constantly voting on whether I'm giving you good answers or not. I don't know. This is really boring. It's interesting. I thought the hot potato thing was good though, because it was really boring. We could just shoot stuff around the room in different ways.
And
yeah.
another question: couldn't we just use an actual beach ball?
You could, but that's been done before.
All right.
And this is more postmodern.
Thank you so much, Tom. I think we all appreciate this as a great Kickstarter to many more discussions on the day. So thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.